I hope you know the impact you have within the college basketball landscape because I don't think there's anybody close to you that is as studied and as admired and respected. Does that make you uncomfortable or do you appreciate that type of adulation?
I mean, both. Obviously I appreciate it. How can I not appreciate it? I'd have to be the biggest jerk in the world to not appreciate that. But it also makes me uncomfortable. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't take it for granted. I was super lucky to be in this position and obviously appreciate all the kind words that people have.
Nah, they geek out when they get so excited. The position itself, you've told us the story, but for a national audience that may not know it, you got into basketball in numbers. How, Ken?
Well, yeah, when I got into this, it was about 20 years ago. I was, working as a meteorologist for the government and just was interested in basketball and interested in numbers and the book Moneyball. I think it just came out. So there's a lot of interest in baseball analytics, and there wasn't much in basketball analytics, and so that's what kind of got me into it. Like I really, started at a time where having an actual job in basketball analytics just was unthinkable. Now it's very thinkable. Lots of people have those jobs, but back then it was like I just started it as a hobby and never really considered any possibility of ever getting paid for my work.
Now, I just want to point out when Patrick says we both are subscribers, we don't share an account. This isn't like Netflix. Like we both have separate accounts. We're both paying for it. So we are not paid, by you to say that. We both separately have our things. And
Dustin, mine renews every February. And every time I talk to Ken, I'm like, why are you charging so little, dude?
People get angry at you for this. Don't do
that. If it was $100, I would just automatically say re-up. Why do you keep it so low?
Yeah, because we can't do our jobs without it if we're being totally transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I was smart, I'd have like two separate tiers. I'd have a media coaching tier and I'd have a regular person tier, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. There's, I haven't done a lot of market research, so I don't know what the optimal price point is for me. But there is, a lot of my competition charges $0, right? So there is that thought that if you charge too much, you start to lose some business. So I don't know that I have the optimal price point, but I don't think I'm that far away, guys.
You should text me. Give me a cut of it. I'm going to jack it up. I'll promote the hell out of it. Let's get into the numbers. I asked you before you came on, I said, have you enjoyed this season? And you've put the numbers together for many, many years now. Is it true that Duke and Auburn, sitting 1, 2, respectively, atop the KenPom rankings, are these two of analytically the best teams you've watched over the past 20 years?
Yes. Yeah. I'd actually throw Houston in there too, guys. Like they might be a tiny bit behind those top two, but Houston is a force as well. I mean, they typically are just known for being this defensive team that wins on like hustle and stuff, but they have pretty good offense this year as well. Kind of reminding me of 2019 Virginia when, Virginia finally got a good offense to go with that great defense. But yeah, all three of those teams are, at a level that, in any other year, they'd be like easily the best team in the country. But there's three of them this year, and they've been in my top three in some order since January 5th. So it just kind of gives you an idea of their level of consistency, which it was good to see the AP poll finally come around this week. And I think for the first time all year, ranked those three as the top three. So they're finally getting on board. But it's just kind of, yeah, it's been a special year in terms of just having that top tier where they've just looked almost completely infallible, just dominating their respective leagues.
So how about like the rest of the field, Ken? Like obviously we don't know the full NCAA tournament field, but when you look at all of the potential teams, would you categorize this year's college hoops options as this is a deep kind of options of teams? Do you think that it's more shallow? Do you think there are some smaller schools that can make runs? When you look at the overall options we're going to be looking at when it comes to the big dance, how would you categorize everything?
Yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily any deeper than any years past. Like I have a hard time believing there's usually like much difference there from year to year. Whether I don't know how many realistically how many teams you think can win it, but the fact that you have like these three dominant teams at the top kind of limits that to some extent. But certainly you're talking about getting to the Elite Eight or whatever. I mean, I don't know. It's to me the depth is pretty much there. I think when we talk about teams from like lesser leagues, one bid leagues, or outside of the Power Five leagues, there's not a whole lot of like interesting stories there. I mean, VCU, I guess, is your option. Obviously, Gonzaga, if they avoid, I guess, playing in an 8-9 game, which it seems like that's where they're headed right now. But Gonzaga, St. Mary's, and the usual suspects from the WCC. And then outside of that, like, I think VCU is probably the biggest name. And then outside of that, it's like you're dropping down to like UC San Diego or Drake. And both of those teams probably have to win their conference tournaments to get into the tournament. So kind of tells you what kind of seed they would get. So from that standpoint, I guess this year is a little bit lacking.
Ken Pomeroy joining us here, VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio, of course, KenPom.com. I want to go back to Duke, Auburn, and Houston, and just for those unfamiliar with your numbers, can you take a look at those three teams, Ken, right now, and have a little fun with what stands out to you as far as the net, offense, defensive, obviously strength of schedule. But when you look at Duke, Auburn, and Houston, what stands out as far as the numbers that makes them so special?
Yeah, I mean, we can go through them. Like, Duke, they've I mentioned this last night, but I'm a little surprised like they haven't become the obvious favorite for the title. I mean, they've just crushed their schedule. They've beaten Auburn head to head, mind you. It was at Cameron, but still, there is that data point, and that was back in December. And they're theoretically is a very young team, so they're probably better now than they were then. But ranked second on offense, ranked fourth on defense. So just elite on both ends of the floor, kind of personifying, their star player, Cooper Flagg, who is elite on both ends of the floor. They shoot it well from three. This is a team that, runs really a modern, modern style offense where they have a bunch of shooters and they're going to space the floor. And then they got guys that can, if you're not going to help off of those shooters, you got guys like Cooper Flagg that can do damage off the dribble. And, they got a very productive big in terms of Kaman Malawach, who is a kind of a dunking machine who thrives in that space in the middle. So that's what really, I think is what Duke is about, is like this tremendous offense. The offense has just been explosive the last 2 weeks, and they have a great defense to go. The defense kind of hides, but number 2 in the country in terms of 2-point percentage defense. So they just a tremendous combination. And Auburn's similar. Like Auburn's been tracking, all year to kind of have the best offensive rating since I've been tracking this, and really in college basketball history, because offenses in olden days were a lot worse than they are now. So, so they're similar in the respect that, again, they, to have a great offense, they basically do everything well. They don't their specialty is not turning the ball over, to kind of pair with great shooting. So their offensive efficiency is through the roof. Their defense is similarly like really good. I haven't ranked ninth, but they're just maybe not quite on Duke's level. We can talk about how good the SEC is or not. That might be depressing their numbers slightly, and you may think that Duke is benefiting from that to some extent. But again, Auburn, not many weaknesses there. And then Houston, I mean, I alluded to the fact that their offense is really the best of the Kelvin Sampson era. Third in the country in 3-point percentage. They don't have as many shooters. They don't take as many threes, so it's not like the core of their offense, but it does help. I mean, they're 258th in 2-point percentage, so they're still kind of ugly in that respect, but they can make some shots in the perimeter, and that allows them to have the 8th best offense in the country. And their defense is still great, 3rd in the country, 2-point percentage defense, 4th in the country. So, they're no fluke. Like, this is still a tremendous defensive team. They get to all the 50-50 balls, and their offense is like significantly better than it has been in the past.
Well, so let's talk about the SEC, because right now, looking at your rankings, you've got 4 of your top 6 out of the SEC. Like, and obviously it's the league that gets all the hype. It's the one that has the great marketing, but the basketball play has been elite this year. Do you see that translating over when it comes to the big dance? Do you see the SEC being well represented at the end of this thing? And how many of those SEC teams do you think are really capable of making runs?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I went back and looked at so the SEC this year had in terms of non-conference play, had the best winning percentage since I've been tracking this, since 1997, and second best scoring margin in non-conference play. And the best was the 1997 ACC. The second best coming into this year was last year's Big 12. And those two teams combined to send 14 teams to the tournament. And one made it to the Elite Eight. So,
Mhm.
so it gives you an idea that, just because you're the best conference, you want to be a little careful, projecting that towards tournament success. I will say this SEC is a little more top heavy than those leagues were, as you mentioned, four in the top six. And you got to think that all those teams can make deep runs. Red flag Tennessee to some extent. The tournament history of Rick Barnes is just abysmal, and I hesitate to put a lot of emphasis on coaching history when, projecting these teams. But I mean, Rick Barnes is just doing this for so long and like disappointed so many years that I'm a little suspect on them. Plus, you just rarely see, certainly teams, in deeper rounds, you don't see as often teams with a Tennessee profile, which this year is their first on defense, they're 27th on offense. So just that lopsided of a profile on the defensive side is not a good formula for a Final Four or a championship run. But those other teams, Alabama, Florida, Auburn, I think they're all legit. Auburn a little concerned with the health of Janai Broom. Like, I don't know why Bruce Pearl keeps playing this guy. Like, they have a number one seed locked up. Every time you watch a game, by the end of the game, he's like limping around. He played really poorly against Kentucky in their last game out. Other than that, he has been productive, I will say. But I'm a little worried about his health. And if he's not healthy in the tournament, that could obviously hold them back a bit. But otherwise, I mean, the way Auburn just wrecked teams this year, they're on upset alert tonight. I should point out, guys, at Texas A&M. But
Yeah,
but the way they've wrecked
tough
teams
spot.
this year to this point, you can't. You have to respect that, and they're obviously one of the favorites to win it all.
KenPom joining us here. So St. John's obviously has been a huge story. Pitino's always going to be a story. They just won the league. What do the numbers say about St. John's?
Very, very, very defense heavy. So second in the country in defense, 72nd in offense. This is an interesting point I want to make, guys. Obviously, Rick Pitino, legendary, I guess, for his like early adoption of the 3-point shot. Certainly way, 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 way back in the day when he was at Providence and the 3-point shot first became a thing in college basketball. He was one of the first guys to embrace it. But his use of the 3-point shot over the years, really you go to like his kind of the later part of his NBA life, and then as he came back to the college game, he does not use the 3-point shot nearly as much as he used to. And in fact, this year his team is 342nd in terms of 3-point rate. So that's kind of an issue there with our guy Rick Pitino. He doesn't really run the type of offense that is terribly sexy at this point, and that's part of the reason why their offensive efficiency is so low. So that's sort of St. John's in a nutshell. Just really good defensive team, very physical team. It's going to be hard to score against them, but it's also hard for them to really get a lot of like breathing room against some of their opponents.
So I have a problem, Ken. It's that I want to be the smartest person in the room when it comes to what we do, the betting stuff. I want the team that nobody was on, the team that shocked everyone and took down a top seed early in the tournament or made a crazy Sweet 16 run that no one expected. And when I look at your rankings, there's a team that a lot of people are talking about because of where you have them ranked. And I can guarantee most of us have not watched them. That is UC San Diego. They're currently number 35. And why that jumps out to me, the team currently number 36 is the two-time defending champs in UConn. Is UC San Diego that team that could make a special run, or is there some other random mid-major that you think is built for March?
I think UC San Diego is probably your best bet. UC San Diego or Drake. I mean, those are the two that, as I mentioned earlier, have to kind of win their conference to get in. But UC San Diego has been really consistent all year. A team that depends heavily on the 3-point shot. They take a ton of threes. Almost half their shots are from 3-point range. But they do have a bunch of shooters, and one of the more unheralded players in the country, and Aniwanwa Tate Jones, a guy to remember, kind of a ball handling wing, initiates some of the offense for them. Oddly, not one of their best shooters, but just a foul drawing machine. I mean, gets to the line 8 or 9 times a game, 78% free throw shooter. So having a guy like that can be a pretty consistent source of offense. So yeah, they're a really exciting team. They got a road win early this year against Utah State, and They're just, really, really solid. 4 losses so far. So they're a team to watch. Yeah, I'd throw Drake in there as well. People have been kind of gaga over their new head coach, Ben McCollum, and they have a very experienced team. He brought a bunch of transfers over from his previous coaching stop at D2 and, have a point guard in Bennett Sturts who basically plays every minute of every game. But he's been a very good performer this year. And another team that has just been extremely consistent this year, only 3 losses, and beat Vanderbilt early in the season, beat Kansas State. So they have some wins to show they can compete with these teams from power leagues. So I think those are the 2 teams to watch when we get to March.
Coaching matters, Ken. You've got Michigan State 9. Talent-wise, that's not a number 9 team on the KenPom rankings, but Izzo continues to get it done with Michigan State.
Yeah. I mean, Izzo's a good example of the coaching thing. Like his March track record is a little bit overplayed at this point, but obviously they're having a great year. Chase Richardson is in particular, their freshman, probably one and done guard, is really playing well of late. Like he's really finishing the season strong. I mean, you're right. They don't necessarily have a superstar, big time scorer, but they have a very good team. I mean, they're 4 or 5 guys out there that can generate offense, and it's just worked pretty well here down the stretch. They're really kind of hitting their stride and closing in on trying to win a Big Ten title. So, Michigan State's definitely a team to watch. Have them ranked 5th defensively. So, they got that side of the ball really kind of well oiled. Their issue is they just, have very little perimeter shooting, but somehow they're making it work. And as long as that defense stays strong, it's obviously a team to be a little bit afraid of.
I don't think I've made a college basketball play in 10 years without seeing what the fan match says. All right. You need to go check it out yourself. I'm a psycho when it comes to the KenPom fan match. Am I going to play this? Let me go see. Am I going to play this total? Let me go add up what KenPom has. Ken Pomeroy, KenPom.com. Hey, man, thank you so much. I know it's a busy time of the year. We appreciate the time.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now, absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at 0 cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.